Hi, I got inspired. So I literally paused my other project for this one here. And that's because I saw a pretty cool video about gaming as a whole and its mindset, especially in competitive games, and it's this one right here. And it's called Why Some Gamers Improve Faster. I like to watch and listen to more psychological related topics, especially if it's just connected to gaming. I mean, two interests and hobbies just getting connected and talked about is just fun. I think many can agree. But originally, I wasn't thinking too much about it. It just sounded interesting because I already kinda knew it would touch into psychology, but the topic itself was already interesting to think about. Okay, but the reason for this video right here is not to talk about this video I mentioned, just see it for yourself. I won't spoil everything, but I will be addressing some details from that video, just to make my own connections. In this case, just being Strinova related. So basically I will be talking about some topics I've already have talked about plenty of times with the extra details from that video, if that makes sense. This video will be full, yep. I will literally not even add like gameplay footage or insane visuals, because this video here was meant to be quick, okay? I will just record this while being in the lobby. Not even queuing for a match. I don't even think I will add music to this. So it's literally just me speaking. Just put me in the background type video, you know? Let me start off with mentioning topics I've been discussing with other people playing Strinoa, a lot of them. Also, not the first time I have talked about this. Topics like how accurate ranks are symmetric to measure player skill, why many players just never seem to learn or improve, despite having a lot of play hours in this game already, why players seem to be hard stack forever and what's holding them back, mindset in Srinoa, and even as a topic, what the real differences are between the ranks, starting from Electron, what's there to compare to Quark, Superstring, and above. So these are topics I want to talk about mainly. This is also the part where we already can talk about one of the key factors from that video, why some gamers improve faster. The main thing that keeps getting mentioned was the term autotelicity. As the definition, I picked this one right here, just straight from Google, not that deep. But in my own words, the purpose on why you do a certain activity is literally just because you want to do it. You're not doing it mainly for other reasons, like the reward that you get out of this, or reaching a certain milestone. Any reasons like that are not autotelic. If you connect this to any video game, you just play the game with the purpose of playing it. Playing it itself is already fun and enjoyable. You don't play it with the main goal to reach a specific rank or grind certain amount of levels. Basically, you play it because of the process and not the results. I think you guys can already tell where this is going, funnily enough, but let me continue a bit more like this before we get into Strinoa itself and the topics that I mentioned that I want to talk about. So these are things that most of us are already familiar with. If you do something for the results rather than the process, most of the time it just feels fucking bad. Just think about any school-related assignment with a deadline that you definitely need to complete, otherwise you get a bad grade. But the topic that you need to research is just not interesting at all. It just feels like a chore, something that you need to force yourself to do, just so you get a good grade. Not fun, there are consequences, and you feel like you just forget everything after it's done. You perhaps even feel the pressure because maybe the deadline is due tomorrow already. So it's even more difficult to focus on the process, to deliver good results in the end. If you want more details about this, once again, just watch that video why some gamers improve faster. I think it's just good and it goes more into detail about these things. Now let's start with connecting this more of gaming and video games before now finally getting to Strinoa. Reminded that it's just interesting for me to yap about this. This is not really a tutorial or advice video or anything like this, so yeah. As an example, I will just take a game or two that I played with quite a bit of time spent in that game. One game that I don't really play anymore but have played a lot back then was Your Only Move is Hustle, with nearly 500 play hours in that game. It's a turn-based fighting game with many moves, many characters, and you get a real-time replay in the end of the match that you have completed. I won't get into the details of that game, because that's besides the point, we don't need to go that deep. I could have picked any game as an example, but what makes it a bit more interesting is that I spent like 99% of these nearly 500 play hours I spent in that game on a single character and the vanilla version of the game. There's modded that most players play, but I just didn't really get into it. So 500 play hours on a single character against only a handful of the other characters in vanilla. And taking a first look at the game is like, buddy, you spent 500 play hours on this. Oh yeah, and I did. And it was a blast. When I started playing, there wasn't even anything like a ranking system. Even later, I didn't really engage with the community on a Discord or any other site. I didn't even know notable good slash top players. I was full living under the rock, and I still do. I don't even know how good I am compared to other players. And it didn't really matter. I played the game, it was fun, regardless if I was winning or not. And like any other fighting game, you learn stuff from your matches, and I was learning in my own way. I didn't look up any optimal combos for XY character. I literally didn't even touch anything related to the game on the internet if it comes to knowledge stuff on a Reddit or wiki or anything like that. And to this day, I still don't know, neither I care. Especially in the time I was still playing, it was especially fun just figuring out stuff on your own. Experimenting or labbing in fighting game terms throughout your matches. I got better and more knowledgeable about the game over time, not just by playing, but in these matches you can also chat with your opponents. I interacted with them. If the opponent was better than me, I asked questions, we even stopped fighting for real and turned the match into a coaching session. If I met lower skilled players, especially newer ones that just didn't use or know any of the important mechanics for a good match, I offered to help them, we chat and chill, talk about the game, and it turned into a coaching session. Everything just in the chat function of the game. Anyways, going back, this is like my own personal prime example of autotelic activity. I played because it's fun, I chatted with my opponents because it was also fun and interesting to learn more about the game. I helped other players because I simply wanted to help them and experience the game in a different way. I was just engaged with the game because it was fun. No other motives like I wanted to be the best, I wanted to prove myself, or I wanted to be acknowledged by the community and its players. You can view this as absolutely nothing was in my way to have fun and improve at the game. I didn't get crashing down because I keep failing to reach an achievement. Winning or losing also didn't really matter to me, regardless of how competitive the game was. I also have such experiences with a lot of other games, with a lot less play hours of course. I had my fun figuring out the game and playing it the way it was most enjoyable for me. Literally playing the game was my whole purpose of these 500 play hours I spent in that game. Now this was autotelic, okay, but now we complete this example and move to Strinova finally. I hope it didn't bore you too much, but I'm pretty sure that segment got either skipped or people just closed the video completely and moved on. Which is fine, whatever. Let's start with the topic what the differences are skill-wise between all the ranks. I will try not to make the segment too long, but what's necessary to say. So everything below Electron, basically from Substance to Electron, you just learn the mechanics of the game. You spend there vaguely said 90% just how abilities and utility work, especially against each other or with another combined. You get familiar with the maps played, you know the spots, you know what angles and positions are there to watch out for. By now you also know what the common team comps are, what characters are considered meta and most played, you know basics of paper mechanics and how and where to utilize it, most basic stuff. I literally lumped together all the ranks from Substance up to Neutron because it really doesn't take much except playing the game to reach Electron. With some time spent, you get to Electron, especially considering that every rank below Electron still gets partially filled with bots. In Electron, you now have full player lobbies. That mostly wasn't the case below that rank. Global Strinova also has too little of a player base to fill all these spots in low rank. To summarize, the information you need to improve up to Electron is basically getting spoon-fed to you, I'm sorry. But if you are already familiar with any other shooters, that time you need to get to Electron is reduced. Maybe everything I just said regarding below Electron is just full bullshit. I admit I mainly focused and thought about Electron and above. Now let's start with Electron. This whole rank is just purely about what you can do on your own as an individual player. Now that you mostly know how the game functions with its mechanics, this is the rank where you start thinking about how you influence factors on your own. The absolute main thing you should spend your time on is limit testing. How much can you get away with on your own? Trying out fighting multiple enemies, experimenting with certain playstyles, character preferences, and so on. It's basically your main character arc. This limit testing is absolutely crucial because you get to figure out the different possibilities of the game, especially in a lot of unknown scenarios. Let me start with this question here. What happens if you push into a risky position that gets you into a 1v2? Of course, we imagine what would happen if you ask this question to other players, you get different answers or perhaps different questions again. But in Electron, it's exactly that, exploring the different answers to a single question like this one. Learning what other factors change the answer to this question. Now, try this one here. What happens if you push into a risky position that gets you in a 1v2 as a sniper? Have you explored different answers and outcomes that you experienced yourself? Or do you simply settle with you probably just explode and die? Or do you try it out yourself and actually experience more possibilities? It's not just about seeing the limits where players fail by simply watching the ones better than you, it's also about experiencing them yourself and especially what your own limits are as an individual player. Limits that are bound by the game's design and your own limits are different things. Now you can definitely say, isn't this what you always do in each rank, just how you play any other video game? And you are completely right, but in Electron it's a bit different since you actually now play against really human beings. Limit testing with bots is just not comparable with actual players. And you still spend time limit testing in the ranks above, because they are simply a different environment with their own things to learn. In the ranks above, you encounter the same problems that either require the same solution but with a better/other execution, or simply different solutions entirely that wasn't necessary in the ranks below. Quark adds another main focus on top of that in Electron. You go from you and the game design to team and game design. In Quark, your main character arc now ends, and now you don't just explore what you can do as a single player, but things you can achieve with your teammates and things you only can achieve with your teammates. The actual team play and coordination is here now in question. This is where players are now mainly forced to think as a group rather than a single person. Otherwise you won't get out of Quark, quite literally. In Super String you have more strict requirements and understanding of setups with your teammates. Okay, but this won't really answer why there are players stuck in Electron. Electron is where ranked Strinova actually starts. In my opinion, there are two types of Electron hard stucks. The first ones are the players that just don't get the right and necessary amount of experiences and resources to improve. Basically, they don't limit test at all or just not efficient enough. If you avoid limit testing properly, you're just unable to recognize how you should have played differently to win a certain scenario. Or you are simply unable to experience different outcomes that may help you develop a different view of the game. This type tends to basically hide behind their abilities and teammates, with mostly the mindset, I hope I do enough of this. The usual trend is these players play mainly controllers and supports. There's nothing wrong with that, but these are characters which abilities have a lot of viable impact with minimal skill required. You can also say they don't get out of their comfort zone. Listen, if the characters you play happen to be controller or supports and they give you the most enjoyment playing the game, that's fine. It's in fact even better this way. I hope you have fun. But objectively speaking, if you're one-trick sniper for example, it's just apparent that you won't properly develop or improve skills that are important for a rifle role. Being exposed to the same scenarios but with completely different tools is still something new that you can use to improve or limit test in this game. If you play both sniper and rifle roles, regardless how the situation looks like, you know exactly what your own tools are and how to utilize them. Like, it could even be the tools from your teammates or your opponents, you just understand, you have this understanding of the game. Either by limit testing or simply being exposed by these circumstances, and you learned from them. The second type are players who actually do gain important and very valuable experience based on how they play the game. The gameplay does result in proper limit testing, so in theory they get the right resources to improve. But they get the useful experience, but they can't or don't properly use them to improve or reflect upon them. So what I mean is they end up making barely any progress. The usual trend of this are players that overly blame their teammates or other factors related to the game, without questioning how these outcomes came to be. It's a very common topic that pretty much all of you are familiar with. Blaming the teammates for failure instead of reflecting properly and asking what and how other factors were at play that contributed for the failure. These players are not always the emotional or ignorant type. All it takes is simply just not being skilled enough to piece the puzzle together, reflecting and analyzing factors and learn from them. I don't want to encourage this black and white type of thinking with this. Everything can be a combination why players don't improve. And let me be clear, with Electron, hard stuck, I don't just mean players that are hard stuck in that rank, but also players that play and act like this in Quark and above. You can even be a super string or singularity, but if you play like this, for me personally at least, you are just like an Electron. Okay, but this now ties back to autotelicity. If it's so obvious, why don't players just avoid being like type 1 and type 2 and just learn properly? Well, not everyone plays for the fun of the game. Most players or people in general are result driven. There are many examples. Maybe you are a player that plays safe and less risky because you don't want to die first and be the main reason why you lost that round, resulting in not limit testing because it would require you to die a lot of times, which maybe looks like you're throwing the match. Maybe you don't want to deal with teammates being toxic to you because you played quote unquote bad. So you settle with just doing enough, with whatever the easiest and less effort method is. Maybe by keep playing the game, you progressively start to care more about winning and losing. So you start caring more about the results, turning it more into your main objective. This is at the same time the result you're looking for and the process. This is also the process on how you want to chase your main goal to reach a certain rank, perhaps. And guess what? None of this is really autotelic. If you enjoy and have fun just playing for the purpose of playing with what the game has to offer, you have the good positive energy, quote unquote, the good vibes to learn the game without always realizing it. Having fun does also improve your performance usually, and since we are always raising our own personal standards if it comes to performance and skill level, we tend to overlook the good parts and focus too much on the bad ones. I mean, that's something you have also heard a lot of times already, but it's important to remind ourselves, no matter how obvious these things are. There's still a lot of players that don't understand how cooked the ranking system is, especially lower skilled ones, and you can't really blame them. It's not like a certain required skill set is gatekeeping the ranks of this game. In high elo you have a lot of players whose skill level are questionable. You wonder if they play this game for the first time. Sometimes it's not this severe, but you do start wondering, these players are too bad for this environment. How are they here? Well, everything I said before, these players probably didn't develop as good with limit testing and ended up going further into a different environment, skill range in other words, without them needing to strictly change as a player and reach certain skill requirements before you can perform decently. Okay, that was a lot. Anyways, I could open the discussion again. Oh, the matchmaking is so bad, the lack of players, the devs are at fault. All of these factors do contribute to this, but I think we all had enough of that discussion, so nah, I'm good. Okay, but going back to that video why some gamers improve faster, it was also mentioned that you want to learn how to detach yourself from results like winning or losing, ranks, tier lists, and so on. Especially if you get more invested into the game, like I sure did, it's difficult to maintain having fun or autotelicity if all you do is care about results. This just hinders your improvement so unnecessarily, it's actually quite severe for a lot of people. You do hear players just saying, oh, it's just a game, or maybe players said that to you when you were mad, for example. Regardless if players say that as a joke or to rage bait you, it's still an underrated reminder to understand. If you fuck up your school assignment and your grades drop by a lot, you may be screwed for life, I don't know, but in a game, you just try again, you restart, you reset. You change your approach, and that's a huge advantage games have, not just video games. So yeah, this is eventually everything I've learned and thought about. Theory, my own experiences, or call it observations, it's whatever. I remind you once again, if you're interested, just go watch that video I've been keep mentioning. I put it into the description. it did inspire me to just summarize all the things I said in these discussions in a single video. I just want to get it out, maybe it helps out one or two people. It's also my first time doing a complete yep like this one. So to summarize again, if you haven't learned how to not care in a video game, you're a fucking pussy. This is like my own personal opinion, vulgar language warning, it's whatever. Keep things simple and complicated. I mean, that's just what I think. I guess I go back to my other projects. Oh yeah, but let me mention that I do game sense and mechanical coaching in Strinova. It costs a bit of money though. If you're interested, just DM me for more details, but I will assume the people watching this video already know who I am, so it's whatever.